Hello, everyone. Welcome to Artist Alchemy. I'm David Reed. No, just kidding. It's me, Alex Cesena. I am from behind the technical board today, and to join you for this interview with Mr. Matt DeMeritt. Hey.
Hey, everyone.
Super excited. This is going to be great. Matt and I were talking backstage in the green room, as we like to call it, just about all the times that we've shared together a little bit, and like theater, and gosh, catching up so far has just been great. I honestly can't wait for the next part of the interview.
Yeah, this has been super fun. I'm excited to be here. This is awesome. So thank you for inviting me, YubaSutterArts and Alex. It's great to connect with you again after so long.
Yeah. What we were saying, probably the last time we physically saw each other was at my graduation in 2008.
Couple of years ago.
Just a few.
Yeah.
My high school graduation.
Yeah.
But we've both done and gone off to do some amazing things in that time, but we're here to talk about you and all those things. Let's just talk about the current crisis and get that over with. How is your life right now during COVID?
You know, I try to temper that answer anytime anyone asks, because I know there's a lot of people going through really, really, really hard times right now. Yeah. But the last 6 months for me have really been excellent. I had a change in career, which was kind of a long time coming for me. Just a time to kind of refocus and redirect. And it's had an opportunity for me to really reconnect with my family, not only my immediate family, my 4 kids and my wife, but my parents and my sisters, and just sort of get back into, I guess, a presence with myself. So I realized, like I said, there's a lot of people going through a lot of hard stuff, but I definitely have seen the silver linings of a slowed down pace of life, and the opportunity to reconnect with some of my passions and my interests and things like that. So it's going well.
Yeah, I think that's the most like positive view that you can possibly get from that. Is like there's definitely a silver lining to everything.
Yeah.
And finding that time for like yourself and introspection is so important during any point in our lives. So, getting that time now is kind of a blessing.
Definitely.
Love that. So moving on a little bit, getting to know you. So first off, let's get this out of the way. It's a question I like to ask all theater people. Mm-hmm. Is it ER or RE?
So they're 2 different words with 2 different meanings.
This is what I've learned too.
Theater with an ER is the facility. So you could walk into a movie theater or a production style theater, and that would be ER. RE is the art of theater, sort of the ephemeral, what exists when we create theater, acting, musical theater, stuff like that.
Yeah. Okay.
That's my perspective, at least.
Yeah, that's what I learned somewhere along the way too. And so like, I've always like tossed that question at different actors and stuff like that. I'm like, come on, make me feel valid that my answer is correct.
I think you're correct. I think we're on the same page on that one.
All right. I should just check the dictionary at one of these points, to verify, but
I'm almost sure it's gonna back me up on that one, because I think I've looked it up before as well. Like I was teaching it in my drama classes back in the day, and I was like, I wonder if I'm just making this up. But no, I think there are the 2 different words.
Okay, got that out of the way. All done. But yeah, so you definitely come from like a theater family.
Yeah.
Gosh, the DeMeritt family has quite the legacy here or I guess there in the YubaSutter area. I say here, even though I'm in Boston. So tell me what it was like growing up in a family that can all sing, act, even do a little dance.
Yeah, no, it was super fun. And honestly, I never knew it was any different than anyone else's life for a really long time. My dad has been doing theater since before I was born. And so some of my earliest memories are of growing up in a theater. Like he worked at a college in Santa Cruz, and my sisters and I would run around the audience area of that theater while he was in rehearsals. My mom would help with costumes. My sisters and I were all on stage together at various times, starting in infancy for each of us. So that is yeah, I mean, it's definitely in the blood. I would say that the drama level wasn't too terribly bad, except that there was just this ongoing connection to everything we were doing, because we were all in some way, shape, or form involved in a lot of the same projects, at least when we were all growing up. Yeah. So doing theater at Faith Christian, or working on, one of the things, like my dad used to do things like Beckworth Days and living history events and things like that. And so there was a lot of, bringing the work home and it continuing to be stuff, but that led to some really cool opportunities in the family, opportunities to, create stuff that I wouldn't have been able to do otherwise. And definitely an understanding of the art form that, I think continues on for each of us. It's still a regular topic of conversation around the dinner table at the DeMeritt household when we get all of our families together. We do talk about theater a lot.
Oh, well, that's so great. I know I've spent quite an amount of time with the DeMeritt family. Growing up, I did, the summer drama thing, and then eventually directed that. So like I got to spend some time at that household and work with, I worked with you, but you were much older. So like you got to do the whole directing me thing, but I got to work with your sisters mainly on like a personal level. And like, we got to direct together, and it was kind of cool. Growing up in the DeMeritt family.
So I'm actually trying to remember what your first show in summer drama was. And I feel like it was The Secret Garden, but I could be wrong.
You were so correct. That is my first show. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. That was a long time ago.
Yeah. Yes, it was.
20-something years ago, I think.
Ooh, that one hurts.
Yeah, but you were a child at that point. I was an adult. So
I'll take that. But yeah, no, that was a fun show. I got to play Colin.
I remember that.
Were you the director?
I was. Yeah. I think that was the third year of summer drama. We had started that program in 1998. My dad kind of had the concept for it, and a friend of mine and I did some. It was our summer job, essentially, to come back and help direct it. A young lady named Jamie Smith. And then I actually met my wife doing summer drama, I guess for the second time, because we went to high school together, but she came back, Crystal Hanold, then DeMeritt now, and we directed together the second year of summer drama, and then got married a few years later. I
remember that vividly, that you were both directing. That's right.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
We actually got married about 3 weeks after the close, maybe less than that, maybe 2 weeks after the close of Wizard of Oz, doing summer drama. It was kind of a whirlwind summer that was more focused on doing theater than on, preparing for a wedding. But,
hey,
that's how we roll.
Yeah. Well, that is so much fun to like look back on that, because I do remember now that you both were directors.
Yeah.
For that.
For a couple of years.
That
was really cool. And then we did the same down in San Jose. I worked out there doing summer stuff. It's a great way to spend a summer. A lot of fun. Great for the young people. Awesome opportunity for kids like you who went on to become adults like you, who went on to become directors, and then kind of getting that opportunity to test out their leadership and whatnot. So really, really cool.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, such fond memories of that program growing up. So yeah, definitely something we can touch on here in a little bit more. Talking about summer drama and all of its facets. Could go on for days. But I know one of my earliest memories also, other than summer drama, was when you were in a production of Midsummer Night's Dream. Yeah, you got to play Puck, and we did it out on the Gazebo Island in Ellis Lake. That was probably one of my favorite things. What do you remember about that?
Oh, man. So that was, I don't know, I want to say like 1999.
I feel like that was it.
Somewhere around there. Yeah. And it was a super cool experience, first of all. I mean, doing outdoor theater, we don't have a ton of opportunities to do it anymore, just because it's hard to do outdoor theater. But it was a really, and I think it was Foster Campbell that directed that show, if I remember correctly. I know there's always kind of a team program when the acting company puts something on, but they invited me to come work on the show. I was super intrigued by their concept, doing it outdoors. There were stage aspects that were like embedded into trees and whatnot. So I spent a lot of time climbing trees in that show. And it was an awesome experience. I'd done a lot of Shakespeare growing up. That was kind of my focus in my family growing up. My sisters were the singers and I was the straight theater actor, which changed later on as I got more into musical theater. But it was a really, really cool experience. And a lot of cool people were in that show. A lot of people that I know are still in the area. I know Matt Coates was in that show. Michael Campbell now goes by RJ Campbell. Joe Moy, I think, was in that show. I think he was in that show. I think he was one of the, a ton of people. It was honestly like, I have such fond memories, but like, as a young man in that time, like I looked up to you so much in that role. Like you have no idea. Oh, that's
like,
thank you. Thank you.
Little did I like understand Shakespeare, but I was like, what he's doing is cool. So
I think theater is awesome. And that's always been my hope, is that people who see what we're doing or experience it with us, that it catches them for life. Because I think it's kind of a one of a kind experience, what you do in theater.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I caught the bug, Here I am talking about it later. So kind of along those lines of like theater and like you said you caught the bug, and so were there like any influences other than your mom and dad that you kind of had early on, or?
Oh boy, I had an interesting experience of having my dad as my theater teacher and director from like 7th grade through graduating high school. So he had a huge impact on not only my love for theater, but also my stylistic perception of theater. I learned a lot from him. But then going on to college, I majored in theater in college. I started out at San Francisco State. And I would say there were 2 teachers that had a really big impact on me. One of them was there. And I won't say the teacher's name because the impact he had on me wasn't great, actually. I had him in my first college level theater class, and I had done theater before, and I had accidentally stumbled into an acting for non-majors class. I didn't enroll correctly. So this was like all the kids who wanted to take acting as an elective.
Yeah.
Not the kids like me who wanted to do this with their life.
Right.
And so we were doing monologues in that class, and the director, the teacher told me at one point, we had like a one-on-one. He was like, Matt, I don't think there's anything else I can teach you on this one. I think you're just good enough on it. And that, like, I mean, this was 20 something years ago. And I have never forgotten him saying that, because in my opinion, theater can never be perfect, right? There's always room to improve and grow and deepen. And so I have, as a teacher, always taken that as a moment that I would never repeat with one of my students. If a student says, am I doing this all right? Do you have any notes for me? Do you have any direction? I always try and give them just a simple way to continue to grow, to continue to develop, because that really bummed me out in my first college theater experience. But the best experience, the person that I think I learned the most from as a teacher was actually a director that I had at San Diego State. His name was Rick Seamus, and he was the musical theater teacher there. And I took his class, I think, 4 times, like way beyond when I needed credit to graduate. So 4 consecutive semesters. And the way he coached individual musical theater performance is exactly the same way I teach it now. Everything I learned from him, it resonated with me. I saw kids growing. I grew in his class. It was the first time I really realized that I could be a musical theater performer. And that he had a huge impact on my growth.
That's amazing. I love that. That's so much. Influencers are so crazy. Like, you never know how someone's going to affect you. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, you are.
Yeah. It's so true.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. So what, do you have any like favorite stage actors, or maybe someone you've seen or someone that you just kind of
I will tell you, so I'm a huge musical theater fan. 6 years ago, I was in New York, and I didn't realize that I was quite this much of a fanboy. But I was walking down the street in New York, and I walked past Sutton Foster.
Oh.
And I had a moment. Like, I seriously Actually, I was walking with a friend and I was like, oh my God, that was Sutton Foster. Oh my God, that was Sutton Foster. Come on, let's go. And we followed her to the stage door of where she was performing and asked her for a picture. And yeah, I would say she is someone that I really think is an amazing performer. She's just so hardcore, so incredibly gifted. And I'm so incredibly ashamed of how nerdy I was when I met her.
I've always thought like I would keep cool when I see like someone like that, but I know I would lose all.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much. Although there is the Sutton Foster curse.
Really? I don't know that
you know
one.
about that? So the Sutton Foster curse is she'll do a show and it's phenomenal, right?
Mm-hmm.
Hands down, she's like killing it. But the moment she leaves, the show closes down.
Oh, I can see that because she's such a powerhouse.
She is such a powerhouse
performer.
Yeah. So like it's I've heard of this, the Sutton Foster curse. Yeah, whatever show she's in.
Cataloging through all the shows she's been in right now, trying to think of and I assume you're right. I'll have to go look that up tonight. I'm gonna go learn about it.
The few that I know off the top of my head, like Shrek and Anything Goes, like closed soon after she left. And so
I don't think Violet, was it Violet?
No, it was Violet.
Yeah, that lasted very long. That's actually what she was performing in when I ran into her. But anyway, no, she's amazing.
Something to look up.
Cool. I will go and learn about it. That's awesome.
Love that. Okay, what about a favorite show? I know it's hard. That was such a awful question to ask. Is there?
So I've had the same favorite show for a long time, and I feel like I might have aged out of this being my favorite show right now. But The Last 5 Years by Jason Robert Brown is one of my favorite musicals and has been since the first time I heard it. And his music is a style. He's a composer that I really, really enjoy his style of music and enjoy more as time goes by. And then most recently, I would say just kind of like because you're ever evolving in your consumption of theater and having a favorite one day can so easily change.
Oh, yeah.
The most favorite one that I've listened to over the past few months was actually Jagged Little Pill.
Oh,
what an amazing interpretation of, these song cycle musicals or jukebox musicals that come out using all of the music of a single artist are usually, to me, really kind of a bummer because it's more about a vehicle for listening to the music. But the way they interpreted Alanis Morissette's music in that musical was, I thought, right on point. And it really touched on a contemporary message set that worked. I know that show got really disrupted by COVID-19. That was one of the ones that was in the theaters and then, had to call time out on everything. But I thought it was really, really powerful. Really, really interesting show.
I will have to give that another listen. I know it's been on my list for a little while. So
you should. All right. And it could be also that it resonates with me because Alanis Morissette was creating music during my teen years. So that was like,
that connection. I mean,
my youth and all that stuff.
Alanis Morissette. Can't go wrong.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Awesome. All right. So I feel like that's the getting to know you section. I had to sing it.
Absolutely.
I felt it earlier and I had to let it out now. But kind of going into a little bit of like your high school experience, like acting when you were growing up, what shows did you do? And like, what was your like favorite roles in those?
So
if you remember.
I do. Yeah. So when I came to Faith Christian, it was the year my dad started there. So we moved to Yuba City for that, the program. And so the program was really in its infancy at that point. We hadn't really converted that fellowship hall space to a theater yet. But we did a bunch of melodramas. We did some Shakespeare. One of the first shows we did there that first year was a thing my dad called Laughter and Lovers. I know he's done it since then. It's Romeo and Juliet and Taming of the Shrew, and I played Mercutio in Romeo and Juliet. And then we did some musicals. I played the rabbi and Fiddler on the Roof because I couldn't sing as a high school student. Like I just did. Yeah, I was not a singer. So I would say one of my favorite roles that I did with them was Benedict in Much Ado About Nothing. That was a really fun show. it was a role that I really identified with because he's kind of a smart aleck and sarcastic and all that stuff. And I feel like it wasn't a huge stretch to play that role. So yeah, but that was really fun growing up. And then it looks like we've got a picture on screen here that was actually, I'll kind of jump forward in time.
Yeah.
This is the last time I got to be on stage. So I had, I've got 4 kids at home, ages 4 through 14. So for the last 14 years, I've had more to focus on at home in the evenings, taking care of little ones than being in a production. But this show here, this is a musical called Gifts of the Magi that I did with a theater company in San Jose called Tabard Theater Company, which is this beautiful little venue in downtown San Jose, historic venue, brick walls, gorgeous place. And it was this, very small scale show. It had 6 people in it. It's a Christmas story based on the O. Henry book that's out there, the short story.
Yep.
And I had decided that I would be in this show because I really missed doing theater. I kind of had this bug to get back into it. Well, my wife was pregnant with our 3rd child at this point, and our daughter was due in the middle of January. My daughter's name is Kylie, and Kylie, I figured if I could do this show from December, it was like, I don't know, November 29th, we opened and then closed like December 17th or something like that, a little 4-week run. Unfortunately, Kylie was born on opening night of that show. She came a month early.
Oh my gosh.
So I had to juggle this show and, going to the hospital to support my wife who had just had a C-section, given birth, all that stuff. But this was a great group, great family. I'm still in contact with most of these folks. And it was just a wonderful experience. But my wife hasn't quite let me live that down yet. So I haven't done another production. I think I'm to the point now, almost 10 years later, that she might be okay with me doing work again. But besides that, it's all been directing for high school and whatnot.
That's really funny. 10 years is a good probation period. Yeah, I think.
Yeah. And it's hard. You almost kind of forget that that's a part of your existence, spending so much time on the other side, in the house doing the directing role. Yeah. But every now and then I do throw an aspect of it into, I would say, my daily existence. There's times where I have, whether it's I'm doing voiceover for a project I'm creating or, doing an ad hoc singing presentation for something that really doesn't require singing, but hey, what the heck?
What doesn't require singing? Hold on.
Yeah, that's true. But yeah, it's something I love, and I just feel like time-wise, it's been hard to explore the acting side. For some reason, I've been able to manage the directing side more, but maybe it's just been the two of those competing for so many years. So.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, trying to do both at the same time would be so difficult.
It's a lot of nights out, and that's hard.
Yeah, for real. Speaking of directing, though, after you graduated high school, you kind of started, like you said, summer drama and started doing that. So tell me about that experience.
Oh man, that was awesome. And also really, really hard. One of my struggles, as many people who have been my supervisor or boss over the years will tell you, is I have an inordinate amount of self-confidence when it comes to my ability to do a variety of things. And often it is maybe like on the level of delusions of grandeur. But when my dad had this idea to do a summer theater program, I'm like, yeah, I can direct that. I know how to direct. I'm 19. Actually, I was 18 when we were having this conversation. Yes. I can figure that out. So we had all these like phone call conversations and whatnot, trying to figure out how we'd make it happen. And we just did. Like we slapped this thing together, put out a sign-up sheet, got 30 some odd kids and created a play that first summer. But in my hubris at that age, I also said, but I also don't want to do any written plays because I don't really like any of them. So I'm going to write my own version of Tom Sawyer, music, lyrics, and book, because I'm that extra. And it was stupid. A lot of sleepless nights that first summer. But somehow we got through it. It was Tom Sawyer the first summer. We did Pirates of Penzance the next summer, which was also like, yeah, Gilbert and Sullivan with 7 to 17-year-olds. That's a great idea. Yeah. But it was honestly the most fun show in the world to work on with kids.
That's
Secret Garden, Wizard of Oz. And then at that point, I actually stepped away. I started doing other things in the summer because by that point I was 22, just gotten married, and was actually touring with a theater company in the Midwest. We were doing a touring production of a show called Cotton Patch Gospel, which is by Harry Chapin, the musician that wrote like Cats in the Cradle.
Okay, I was going to say.
Yeah. So my wife and I spent 2 summers touring with that company. And then we came back for one more year of summer drama after that, doing the off-brand production of Peter Pan. Do you remember that one? Did you work on Peter Pan?
I was in that one. I
You
was
were. Okay.
I was Captain Hook.
You were Captain Hook. Okay. So
was that the first year we did 2 casts?
It may have been. Yeah.
I think it was, and I got to be Captain Hook.
So that version of Peter Pan, if anyone is listening and thinks we're talking about the version you've seen, like the Kathy Rigby version, this was not. This was written by a guy named Piers Chater Robinson, if I remember correctly. Out
of my head.
Oh no, it's still in mine because I actually did the show twice. I did it once in Yuba City, and then I directed it down in San Jose as well. And it's a really interesting interpretation of the musical. I won't say it's bad. It's very British. It's got a very British.
It was like cake, poison damp cake.
Yeah. The music, it's not. I can't remember who, Maltby and Shire, I think, or Maltby and Strauss, or I can't remember the people who did the other one. But it's not that. The music is not as good as that one. But I've done it twice, so there you go.
I mean, cheers to that. That's the one I really remember was "Why." That song stuck in my head.
Yeah.
Why? Go on. Yeah. No, I think
very poppy in an 80s way.
Yeah, very much so. I think we all made fun of it backstage, and we would all just like be super dramatic about it. Yeah,
that song in particular was super dramatic, just very, very like wanting to be a Richard Marx power ballad sort of thing. Yeah.
I remember everyone called me Captain Prince because I had a wig and it made me look like Prince at the time. So
that's perfect. Yeah,
it was fun. Good times.
That fit that show.
Yeah, it was all working. I love summer drama. It was honestly one of the greatest experiences of my life. Like I spent every summer there from probably 9 to 23.
Wow. Yeah. No, I agree with you. Not including those 2 summers that I spent touring, I did it every summer from 1998 until 2015.
Wow.
So the last 5 years, I haven't done a summer program, and it's felt weird to have a summer. I find myself just sort of sitting around, like, what do people do when they're on summer break? Like, and you work in education and you have weeks off. So,
yeah, imagine that. No, that's great. Oh my gosh, yeah, we could talk about just summer drama.
I know
for hours on end, just reminiscing all together. But eventually, like you were off at college during all these times too, right?
Yeah.
So you went to San Francisco State, San Diego State, San Jose State. You had a thing for the
all of the state schools. I wanted to sample them all. I spent 2.5 years in San Francisco. Right out of high school, I wanted to leave Yuba City and go to the big city, and that was the biggest city in proximity. Yeah. And I loved it. It was a great school, really strong theater program. I learned a lot about myself there, a lot about some really interesting performance styles. Something about the climate got to me after a while, though, because it's always cold and dark and rainy and windy in San Francisco.
Yeah.
And then I met my wife, or my soon-to-be wife, Crystal, who lived in San Diego at the time. And so I was like, San Diego's a lot sunnier than San Francisco. I think I'll move there. And so I moved to San Diego, middle of my junior year of college. I decided to just go down there. I took a gap semester and studied at a little junior college down there called Grossmont Junior College, which actually, and I'll give a shout out to kids here in general, just a word of advice. Junior colleges have some of the most solid programs available out there. The dance program in particular at that junior college was amazing. And because I wasn't working toward college units at that point, I'd finished my GA. All I took was dance classes. I took like 4 dance classes, a stage makeup class, and a singing class, and maintained my full-time student recognition, so I didn't have to pay back my student loans, and just learned, just did stuff that I was really passionate about. It was awesome. And then I went to San Diego State after that.
Yeah. One of the best theater programs around. Musical theater at the very least.
Great school. Yeah, their musical theater MFA is top notch. And I was really lucky when I was there to get to work really closely with their MFA program. It's any state school that you're going to go to is tough because you're dealing with a much larger population in your theater program. But financially and really grades wise for me coming out of high school, that was where I fit. And so what I found was, just really kind of elbowing your way into those programs and finding your niche and finding a way to contribute to the community. And I was blessed with some really cool opportunities and learning alongside those MFA students who were there getting their terminal degree in the study of musical theater. I got to sneak into some of their classes. I actually got added into some classes that I shouldn't have been in probably. But I learned a lot of cool stuff and worked with a lot of really great teachers. And it was excellent. Yeah. Really fun school.
So cool. So cool. And the entire time you were just studying theater. That was like, you were like, theater is my thing. I'm going to do this.
Yeah, that was my focus. Pretty much until I got offered a job to teach. I had never really expected to go into teaching. I had a teacher in college who I gave a presentation in like a theater history class. And she was like, you should think about being a teacher. And I'm like, no, I'm going to be an actor. And
yes, hair flip.
Yeah, exactly. The hair flip and everything. And then I had left San Diego. My wife and I, it was this weird, like, I'll try to give like the cliff notes of this. My wife and I were living in San Diego. We had these friends who we had done this tour program with in the Midwest. And they said, hey, let's start a theater company together in New Hampshire. And my wife and I were like, yeah, that seems like the right next step for us. We'll move to New Hampshire. And then 2 weeks before we left, so we had gotten rid of our apartment, sold all of our stuff in San Diego, moved back up to Yuba City for like 2 weeks, sort of as a let's centralize here and then go there. And in Yuba City, we got here and we're like, do you want to move to New Hampshire? And the other one was like, I don't know, do you? I'm like, maybe not. Okay, me neither. We don't even own winter coats. Like, it snows there. So we decided not to. And we had the craziest month and a half of having no idea what we were going to do with our young adult lives. And I actually got a job working in the shop at Sacramento Theatrical Lighting. Like, I was lugging cables and, prepping lights to go out on gigs and stuff like that. And one thing led to another. I ended up getting a call from Valley Christian High School in San Jose, who had heard that I was looking for a job. I'd reached out to many, many months before and been told, we're looking for someone with experience teaching, but they hadn't found the right person. And so they called me back for an interview and said, would you like to come, direct our theater program, which was definitely kind of in a lull phase. It was in a rebuilding time there. So I took the job, like that. I basically gave notice at my job after I got off the phone with them. I moved to San Jose within a week and started in the classroom a week and a half later. And they called me in September, which was weird. Getting hired in September as a teacher, the school year's a month in at that point. And so these kids had a long-term sub. But yeah, I dove into teaching with, interestingly, no background in teaching, no teacher training, no teaching credential. But a whole lot of that optimism that I mentioned before, like, yeah, I can do this. I can do anything. And I spent 12 years at that school, and it was amazing. Great theater program, really, really solid foundation from the school infrastructure. Financially, they supported the arts really, really heavily there. And we got to do some cool stuff over the years. It was really cool.
I remember because your dad actually took down a theater class to see one of your productions. I think it was Oklahoma. Maybe.
Yeah.
I remember a windmill.
If you remember a windmill, then it was Oklahoma because we had Oklahoma in that show.
Then it was Oklahoma.
Now,
did you play Judd?
That's what I was going to say. Do you remember me being in that show? Because I was. It was like my third or fourth year at that school, and I'm going to have to gloss over the details of this one out of like FERPA regulations and whatnot, but a student was no longer able to be in the production for some certain reasons 2 weeks before the show opened, and we didn't have an understudy, and we didn't have enough guys in the theater program at that point to plug someone else in. And so I was like, yeah, I'll do that, I guess. It was fun. It was awesome. I mean, Judd is an amazing role in music theater that typically I wouldn't really get to play, especially in my younger years. He was not my type at all. And I had so much fun playing that role. It was so cool because there's a lot of depth and a lot of actually sadness to that role. But that's a conversation for a different time.
No, you're right. No, I was actually thinking about that. My college did Hunchback of Notre Dame right before I left. And I really wanted to be in it, but I was directing the straight play that year. Mm-hmm. So, but like, I didn't want to play Quasimodo. I wanted to play the Cardinal. I can't remember his last name right now.
Is it Frollo, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. I wanted to play him because there's just like so much depth in that character and everything. I was like, forget the lead. I want the one that's got the crazy like storyline and like is torn. And
getting to play a bad guy is a lot of fun. Because they're not all bad. And I think that's the thing that makes it cool is getting to dissect the characters a little bit and determine what is motivating them beyond just I'm bad. Brings depth and it's fun and
Absolutely. Yeah, you're totally right on point. That's what I was thinking too. So like I get the feeling of wanting to be Judd and everything. That's cool.
Yeah, super fun.
But I know also when you were down at Valley Christian, your dad told this story to us so many times of just for like 3 months straight. All we heard about was like, they got a turntable for two Les Mis. Why can't we raise money to do? And it was just, we need a turntable. And I was like, if only.
So we've got
Les Mis,
we've got a picture here of Les Mis. 3 very talented actors right now. One of them, actually, the woman playing Madame Thénardier there. Or girl at that point, woman now works for Upright Citizens Brigade in LA. Stellar performers. So we had a turntable in this show. Les Mis is one of those things that I loved since a young age. It was the first professional theater production I think I ever saw.
Wow.
Saw it at the Curran Theater in San Francisco. I want to say when I was like in 3rd or 4th grade.
Wow.
Blew my mind, wanted to do it. And so it became a thing that we sort of got the school around. Like the music department was plugged in, the visual arts department was plugged in. Everyone was sort of gathering around it. And we were able to, do some fundraising, secure some school funding and whatnot, so we could really do the show right. Get the, the barricade, and we built a turntable. A guy named Tim Mendolia, who is a great friend of mine, was my TD, was the TD for technical director for Valley Christian for all those years that I were there, or that I was there. Built this thing from scratch. I mean, he literally like hand rolled steel so that he could create this frame. And it was amazing. And he was an amazing designer to make that happen, a technician to make that happen. But it was a really cool opportunity getting to direct on a turntable, getting to experience the 3-dimensionality of that. And the kids just loved it. We ended up really fleshing it out into, I think we had about 65 kids in the show. Kind of woven into different tracks of the ensemble because there's so many stages of I think it spans like 25 years or something like that. So we had people woven into different roles in that, and then an excellent orchestra. A really, really cool experience. One of my, I think one of my favorite experiences that we put on at that school, as far as seeing something come to fruition and knowing that it was such a solid work of art. I mean, as I would say people argue about Les Mis because now it's been around for 30 years and it's, definitely emblematic of the blockbuster musical theater phase that Broadway went through in the 80s, early 90s. But I still think it's a beautiful, beautiful piece of art and one that I can continue to listen to, continue to want to work on probably for my whole life. It's just a fun show.
Yeah. I mean, Les Mis is one of those shows for me. I'm like, oh, I understand its importance. Not my thing, but I understand. So but at the time, it was the fact that you got to do it and it was like this full scale production. And I mean, I'm jealous. Let me tell you, what I would have done to have been in that show.
It was a cool experience. A lot of really, really solid. Yeah, as I look through here, it's fun because it was also, I want to say 2008 that we did that show. So 12 years later, about your time graduating from high school. So it's interesting to see where a lot of these young people have gone on to. I'm looking at this little crew right here, and I think I know at least one of them who's done television and movies, and the other one is doing, the theater, improv work down in LA. We've got people who are composers, and it's cool to see them continue in the arts after their experiences doing the arts in high school.
Well, I think that's says something about you. You probably were to do a humble brag about you. No, I mean, you were such a strong influence on these children at the time that they continued in this and saw it as something that they could foreseeably do, so I think that speaks wonders to your ability as a teacher and an influence on their lives. Actually, let's talk about you. I know you want to talk about Titanic too at that school. So Sean, bring up that. Well, let's talk about Titanic. I mean, I saw that picture of you and I was like, that's Paul. Wait, no, that's not. That's Matt, because this is Matt's profile.
So the Titanic was, I think, 2012. We actually did so there's a musical of Titanic. Not a lot of people know this. Morgan Weston composed it. And the musical is not based on the same thing as the movie. There's no Jack and Rose and, never let go moment at the end. Right. It's a more direct historical retelling of, the final hours of the ship before it sank. We, again, with sort of that process of I want to do this thing because I want to see if I can. We had done a bunch of pretty high impact shows over the years. We did Les Miserables with the turntable, and we did Singing in the Rain with Rain. And I was trying to find a show that would really work for the school. And I happened upon Titanic, which has beautiful music. It came out in, I want to say 1996, 97 on Broadway, and didn't do exceptionally well. It won a bunch of Tonys, but it didn't run for very long. Partially because it was so expensive to mount, because part of the aesthetic of it was you had to have a sinking ship on stage. And so for this show, we built, again, Tim Mendolia, the amazing tech director, built a stage that I think it was, I want to say 45 feet wide and 25 feet deep. And the whole thing was on 2 hydraulic lifts and would lift up to about a 12.5 degree angle. Oof. Because that's a huge plot point in the show, is that slowly but surely that ship is beginning to sink and stuff is rolling away and tumbling over and people are trying to climb up to the top. This was a show that we left everything on the court when we put this show together. We worked on it hundreds of hours. We didn't sleep for weeks leading up to it because we had so much to do to develop the visual aesthetic. But it was one of those shows that was really, really successful. I mean, as far as high school theater can be successful, it did well with our audiences, but also won a number of awards in our local, theater community and whatnot. We were able to make a historical learning experience out of it. We had a local fine art collector who came and had Titanic artifacts, and he did a showing for our students. And it was a cool integration of learning and art and creation, practical, all that stuff. Just a really cool opportunity. And again, I had a kid get sick when this picture was taken. A student got just really, really ill during the beginning of the second week of the performance, couldn't come on stage. He was like hallucinating because he had a fever. And so I jumped in. Now, I did not know the lines to this show because I only had like a 1 hour notice. So I had a little earpiece where someone was feeding me the lines as I was saying and singing them, which was rough.
Wow.
But it was super cool. I mean, come on. Those are the things we tell our kids about.
Honestly, though, no, like when everything goes horribly wrong, theater goes on.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So yeah, that's amazing that you were jumping in right there and there. That's great. You do what you can for the show.
Absolutely.
But from here, though, you left Valley Christian and you went to Natomas Charter Academy.
Mm-hmm.
So charter school. Yeah. What prompted the move?
So in 2000, I was actually in the process of I was hiring people for the school in San Jose for the conservatory program that we developed there. And I was looking for a visual arts job description online, and I was searching examples, and I found this advertisement on EdJoin, which is where teachers find jobs, for Natomas Charter School's Performing and Fine Arts Academy. The Natomas Charter School is one of the oldest charter schools in California. And they have 5 academies, each one with an individual site administrator or principal. And the position was called the coordinator of the Visual and Performing Arts Academy. That's what they call their principals at that school. Okay. And as my former boss, Ting Sun, will tell you, I, with my great amount of Matt DeMeritt hubris, said, I could be a principal of an arts school. And so I called them and I said, hey, here's what I do. By this point, I was no longer just a teacher at Valley Christian. I was the managing director of the Conservatory for the Arts. So I'd done administration, budgeting and hiring and, all that stuff. And I said, hey, I think I could be really good for your school. Here's my background. I'm not necessarily a public school administrator, but I'm willing to learn. And one thing led to another. The interview went extremely well. They offered me the position. And this was at a point where the housing market in San Jose was kind of skyrocketing. And we were kind of worried about whether we would ever be able to really live anywhere but this little tiny townhouse that we were living in. We wanted a house with a yard and whatnot. And we missed being near family. My parents, Paul and Ann DeMeritt, live here. My wife's parents, Bill and Mary Hanold, live in Yuba City. All of my siblings have lived here at one point. Most of them still do. Yeah. And we sort of thought, yeah, this is the right decision. They offered the job, and I said, yeah, let's make this work. I want to go back up to Northern California. And so, yeah, we sort of made the jump, and I took on that role as, and it was a weird, amorphous, unique principal role because it was in collaboration with other administrators of other academies, but they were each sort of autonomous. But yeah, I did that for 5 years. Wow. And it was an amazing learning experience. I learned a lot from them. My boss at that school, Ting Sun, is currently on the State Board of Education for California. Oh. So I learned a ton from her and my colleagues and whatnot. And during my time there, I got to do some cool stuff. I mean, I even, typically I was sitting behind a desk. I was administrator. It was of an art school. So I tried to find ways to infuse my artistic interests with what we were doing. Most recently, I directed a production of Oklahoma there. I did that actually in 2018. I told everyone, hey, I know I'm not supposed to be like a theater teacher here, but can I direct? Is that cool with everyone? And they were like, yeah, let's do it. And it was great. And it made me realize how much I missed doing theater and how much I missed teaching the arts. But, I did other stuff as well. One of the pictures that we saw up there was we had the opportunity to travel to China with a program called One Voice, which is like an international ambassadorship of peace through young people in the arts. And so, yeah, I think we were at the Forbidden City there that day. It was when we got to China. And it was super cool. We got to do outreach with this school in Jinan, China, which is a province south of Beijing. and our students got to put on performances there, and I got to help with some of the artistic elements of that. But really, my role at that school was primarily administrative. Even though I would search for ways to kind of connect with the arts, it really was focused on the money and the budgets and the hiring and the paperwork and things like LCAPs and stuff like that, which, they're different. They're a different thing. Yeah. And so, it was at the end of 5 years, actually last January, that I started to think, maybe I don't want to do administration forever. Maybe I need to really focus on what I know fills me with joy. My son was talking about Marie Kondo the other day and sparking joy. I was like, yeah, that job didn't spark joy, and the one I'm in right now does. So,
hey, there you go.
I made the decision that I was going to transition out of administration and take a teaching job, and I did that actually well before I knew anything at Marysville Charter Academy for the Arts was available. I actually announced that I was going to be leaving that school in January of last year, and spent about 2.5 months totally uncertain of what I would be doing after my last day of work there in June. I finished in June, and fortunately, there's a divine plan for everything. And Tim Malone lives across the street from my parents, and they had a conversation, and, hey, we're looking for a theater teacher. And my dad said, oh, you should apply. They're looking for a theater teacher. And so I applied. We had a good interview. They, invited me to come on board. And honestly, the last 5 weeks of teaching in this classroom experience, I'm actually in my classroom right now, doing distance learning in the arts with kids, has been so incredibly joyful, like such a wonderful experience to be feeding into these young people going through one of the hardest times that they've ever experienced, distance from their friends, distance from their school community, and yet still finding ways to bring them a connection to the arts and to what stuff they love. It's been awesome. And I know that at some point that honeymoon phase is going to end and teaching's going to be like, teaching's hard, but God, I love it. It's awesome.
Yeah, that's amazing. Well, I know the community would be remiss without a DeMeritt teaching theater somewhere. So
it does feel that way. It was a pretty quick turnaround between my dad's retirement and me coming back to the area.
Yeah, I mean, shoot, I know your dad was trying to convince me to take over his job at a couple of points. He was like, if you ever get that degree, Alex, you can come. I'm like, thanks, Paul. I'll think about that.
It's definitely something you have to love teaching, and you have to love teaching in the arts. It's not something I would recommend for everyone, but yeah, it really, really did grow on me. And finding ways to bring young people from that sort of, I like being dramatic, or I've got a lot of energy, or my parents think I'm really funny, and so they want me to do theater, to like, I have a craft. I understand how to create life on stage, and how to convey a character, and how to do art, how to create art. That's awesome. And high school is the time when you get to see that happen. Middle and high school is where that emerges from a young person. So it's really cool to see that.
That's awesome. And I love that philosophy. That's so great to hear that from, a teacher. Get all sorts of kinds doing it. But, to see like someone think, oh, I'm going to take this spark from someone and see if I can make it into a passion.
Yeah. Cool. Definitely.
But I know starting during COVID wasn't ideal, but I've seen on Facebook, you do some posts about like what you're doing teaching wise. Can you discuss that a little bit and like how you've so innovative and stuff? I think it's awesome.
So teaching, I actually teach theater. I have a number of drama classes, and then I'm also teaching some graphic design and graphic arts classes. That was one of those things that I got into over the years and studied, and never had the opportunity to teach. And they had both positions open. So I've been really exploring how to lean into the constraints of distance learning right now. A lot of what we've been doing, like what we're doing right now, this idea of Zoom calls and whatnot, is great for interview. It's great for individual performance. But I've been trying to wrap my brain around ways to lean into the distance experience, how to asynchronously create art in a performative way together. And I have some ideas, and I don't want to give it away yet because I'm still fleshing it out with my advanced drama students, but I'll say it involves a green screen and asynchronous performance. And that's all I'm going to say, but we're going to figure something out cool, and hopefully it'll go on virtual stage here sometime in October or November.
Cool. Can't wait to see that.
I know, me too. I'm so excited to see if it works or not. But then with my other classes, I've realized that, okay, we can't be together, but that also means that there is no limits to where I can take my students. So if I want to go in one of my first class periods, I wanted to talk to my students about graphic design in the world around us. And I could have given them a slideshow and said, okay, here's a picture of this billboard and here's a picture. Instead, I just got in the car, I had my son filming me, and I took him on a drive through Yuba City, and we looked at billboards and like posters for elected office. And we went through Target and looked at packaging design, and it was super fun. And the kids thought it was awesome. And it got us sort of thinking about how art lives in the world around us, but sometimes in sort of a hidden way that we don't think about as art. And so that was kind of the beginner of me taking them through the image creating process and learning how to put those images into a format that could then be used in that way. So trying to find ways to make the experience authentic and meaningful and keep them learning in a dynamic way, even if it means they have to do it with found materials, with, off-brand tools, using stuff that's available online because they're using a Chromebook or what have you. Right. Yeah, just finding ways to keep making, like I know you mentioned to me the other day, just continuing to keep creating even when we're a little bit constrained by the distancing and all that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, that's so awesome. I think that real life application and like showing it that way is just so important, because like a lot of the times in classes, especially in high school, you get like the theory behind something, and it's like, this is this way, and now we're moving on. But to see like real life application and just like in an everyday situation is just so cool. And I mean, you probably changed your perspective on anything they do when going through town or something. So
I hope so. I mean, I think one of the things that MCAA does really well, and I know Natomas Charter School did as well, is we do try and find authentic ways for the art to, have an audience, to be seen out there, and to bring it to fruition past the theoretical, because the practical at this age, I think, is more important. But that gets into a pedagogical teaching discussion longer than we have time for. But
you're right. And I would love to have the discussion another time, because I don't know if you know this, I was actually, I traveled around the world teaching kids for a couple of years.
Yeah.
So like I'm all about teaching kids and like enriching their lives through like art and stuff like that. So like we could go on forever about like how different ways in which that's practical and like how everyone can.
Let's do it. I love
it. We'll do it one of these days. But yeah, so I mean, I feel like we've covered pretty much all the bases here. I'm excited to see what future plans you have for MCAA. Anything on the horizon like that you can like talk about? Or
so this year's tough with the distance learning, because we are, and I will use this opportunity to say to everyone in the YubaSutter community, we all want to go back to school. So wear your mask, socially distance, all that stuff. Don't throw parties. I hope, we want to get these numbers down because we want our students back on campus as soon as possible. But with that, there is a little bit of a question in the arts team here at this school of, how much can we do and not overburden our students? Because there's so much technologically that has to happen to create digital online performances. And our students' first priority is, of course, focusing on their studies, getting good grades, living a balanced life and whatnot. So we're balancing that right now. I do know that when we are able to create theater again, my goal is to bring some more contemporary works to the stage here. I've gotten to know Wendy Marks, who is the woman that I took over in the theater program, pretty well over the last few months. I've had a number of conversations, and I love the exposure she gave the students to Shakespeare, golden age of musical theater, the classics of the early 1900s, American stage and whatnot. And I think I'd like to kind of complement that with a exploration of stuff that's been created over the last 15 or 20 years, because I think we've gone into a really cool realm of musical theater where we're creating works that are authentically for young people, be more chill and Legally Blonde, Heathers, although that may be a little edgy for the high school stage, but these shows are about high school students, and it's not Grease. I love Grease, don't get me wrong, but that was it for high school for a long time, for high schoolers to play high school students. And so I look forward to playing some of that stuff out here and seeing what it looks like.
That's so awesome. I love that so much. I cannot wait to see, like, I won't be able to see it physically, but like, I hope to see it virtually at some point and see the progress and everything. So
me too. I'm excited for it.
Yes, the future of theater is alive and well in the Yuba Sutter area.
Awesome.
All right. Well, as we kind of wind down here, we've talked everyone's ear off for the last hour, but as we do like to do at the end of each program is do a quick 10 questions that was presented by James Lipton, who ran the Actors Studio in New York City for so many years. So without further ado, here are the final 10 questions. What is your favorite word?
Oh, goodness. It's funny. The first word that comes to mind is behoove, which means like something benefits you. Right. But I remember my students made fun of me for using that word one time when I was younger, and they didn't believe it was a real word, but it is a real word. And
it's a real word.
Yeah.
That's funny. I like that word too. What is your least favorite word?
Obfuscate.
Ooh.
Because if you mean to confuse someone, just say confuse. It's way easier.
But it's such a fun word. Anyway, you're right. What turns you on creatively, spiritually, or emotionally?
So you see right behind me, right here, those words, yes, and. That concept in any environment gets me going. If someone is like, oh yeah, I want to do this, and then we could do this too. That is how magic happens.
Preached. That is so true. What turns you off creatively, spiritually, or emotionally?
Well, I mean, the easy inverse to that is someone saying no, but, like we can't do that thing, but wouldn't it be hard? Or people who are just sort of down on the complexities of creating something cool because it doesn't fit into their framework of how they view the world. That I find really, really hard to deal with.
I get that. Yeah.
Yeah.
What is your favorite curse word?
Oh boy. So I have 4 kids, and so and my kids and my wife will tell you that my language can get pretty salty at times, especially when I'm frustrated. But I would say that my favorite one most recently is any version of a curse word used on The Good Place. So yes. If you've watched that TV show, like mother forking shirt balls or something like that. Yes. That is a lot more, PG-ish for the home use. So probably something from that.
Cool. I love that. What sound or noise do you love?
Oh gosh, the ocean, 100%. I love the ocean.
Yeah. What sound or noise do you hate?
Gosh, I hate the sound of music played through the tinny speakers of an iPhone. It drives me insane. Put it on a speaker, y'all.
Give it life. I get that. I feel you. Yeah. What profession other than your own would you like to attempt?
Oh goodness. I've always wanted to do some level of voiceover work, like for real, like as my job. I love the world of voiceover. I love voice acting. It's something I haven't gotten to do a ton of. And it comes up every now and then because I have a deeper voice and whatnot. Yeah. But, yeah, I would love to experience that. I just don't think I have the guts to make that big of a jump. I mean, I just made a career jump last year. I don't think I'm ready to do it again soon.
Maybe get stable first and then.
Yeah.
No, I was actually going to say your voice sounds pretty. I listen to it. I watch a lot of anime.
Yeah. I could probably do some anime stuff. I don't know.
I could hear your voice on one of those shows. What profession would you not like to pursue?
Oh boy. I know what my real answer is, but I don't want to be against our I feel like school administration is a really hard job. I did it. I don't want to do it again. I just didn't love it. But beyond that, I think it would be interesting to try a lot of things, but less desk work than yeah, desk works can be pretty tough. Being on your feet is more
active.
Yeah.
I feel you. That was my answer too. I was like, nothing behind a desk.
Yeah.
All right. Last question. If heaven exists, what would you like to hear God say when you arrive at the pearly gates?
So it's less that I would like to hear him say something, because I'm not entirely sure, and I say him, not wanting to attribute a gender to God at all.
Right.
I'm not sure that there would be language in that experience at all, and I sort of hope there isn't.
Ooh.
Like, I hope it's way beyond the concept of someone speaking words. And it's more about, I don't even know, but we could get into a whole conversation about that. But I think words are beyond description at that point.
Just gonna give you some snaps. Excellent answer. Love that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Matt. Honestly and truly, I know we're all excited to see your effect on theater in the Yuba Sutter Arts community. Can't wait to see where this goes and what you're going to do in the meantime. I know you're joining us for Slightly Batty. Yeah. For those that don't know, we're going to be putting on a spooky production in October. So Matt's going to be one of the singers and performers, and I will also be doing that. So join us for that. We'll have more info about that later. And I just want to say thank you to our technical support team, David, Abby, and Shantae, for all the work that they do. And up next week, we have special guest Lila Rivera, one of the local fine artists, on September 15th at 4 p.m. right here on the Yuba Sutter Arts Facebook page and our YouTube channel. But until then, that's it for Artist Alchemy. Thank you all so much, and thank you, Matt.
Bye.